Welcome to today's episode of the Declutter Hub podcast, your channel for super easy, no-nonsense advice on how to declutter and organise your home. Please welcome your hosts, professional organisers Ingrid Jansen and Leslie Spellman.
Hello and welcome listeners to episode 38 of the Declutter Hub podcast. I'm Ingrid.
And I'm Leslie.
If you have clutter and want to sort it out, this is the show for you. In today's episode, Leslie and I are talking about jewellery organising. Now, Leslie and I decided we really wanted to do a podcast about decluttering and organising jewellery because it's often the last on the list when we're decluttering bedrooms. And when we were preparing this podcast, we first thought it would be kind of like a short one. Like, what can you tell about jewellery organising? And then we started kind of writing everything out and preparing everything. And we thought, okay, this is quite the podcast, isn't it, Leslie?
I know, exactly. There's a lot to say, isn't there, about jewellery?
Yeah, I think there's a lot more to it than people realize. I think it's because it's really small and doesn't take up a lot of room. It's a bit forgotten a lot of the times.
I think that's one of the, talking about the emotions involved in decluttering jewellery, that's a big one, really. It's kind of out of sight, out of mind a little bit, isn't it? And so that's why it's often last on people's list to tackle, really. Because it's small and it doesn't really take up, as you say, it doesn't take up lots and lots of space. And so we can forget about it because it's not impacting the way that we live generally, is it? But that doesn't mean to say that it's not important to get it under control and to get it organised.
You know what? I decluttered jewelry with a client at one time, and it took us a whole, I think, 3 or 4 hour session to actually sort it all out because it was so much more work than you actually think it's going to be.
It's slow. It is slow. This is not a quick job, everybody, is it? It takes a lot of time because there's a lot of tiny little things in there, a lot of things that you have to pair up and all that kind of stuff. So it's not an easy job. It's one that's going to, you need to set aside at least a couple of hours, 2-3 hours to do this.
Yeah.
Which is why it's always at the end of our list, isn't it, with clients, really, because we tackle the bulk of the stuff first generally, don't we?
Yeah.
And then we go down to the sort of nitty-gritty later.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's also, you need a good flat space as well when you start to declutter jewelry. So ideally you want to have some sort of table clear where you can kind of spread it all out.
The bed sort of works as well. I've done it on the bed as well. As long as the bed's made and flat, the bed can work as well because you can really sort of, especially on a double bed, you can kind of move everything around. So if you've not got a table in your bedroom, because often it's going to be in our bedrooms. Well, Is it always going to be in our bed? Pretty much always going to be in our bedrooms, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
But I think the reason why it's quite interesting, jewellery, is because a lot of the standard decluttering, we talk a lot about the standard decluttering emotions, and a couple of them are definitely prevalent with jewellery, aren't they? So the ones that I wanted to highlight specifically are sentimental, you're holding on to things for sentimental reasons, and for guilt, you're hanging on to things because you feel guilty. And so that tends to be things that we have been given or things that we've inherited. So the sentimental stuff and the guilt's kind of wrapped up together really in this one. And that's why it can be difficult. And that's why we keep hold of things perhaps longer than we need to. And so today we're just going to talk a little bit about different options for maybe offloading some of the jewellery or changing things up or whatever. And, why do we keep hold of things long after they're useful to us and when we're not wearing them?
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I think we're also going to touch upon the different storage solutions that are there for jewelry as well. So it's going to be a very, very inclusive podcast, this one, with loads of stuff that we're going to talk about. So why don't we start with, why do we hold on to so many of this jewelry and things?
I think we tend to get jewellery is something that people give at key moments, whether it's a birthday, whether it's a graduation, an 18th, a 21st, a 40th, a wedding. All of those things are things where jewellery might be something that you receive from someone or someone gives to you. And I think, so there's a very special sentiment that goes along with that, isn't there? Because it will have been from a very key moment in your life. So the sentiment is high on this one, isn't it, with jewellery generally, but not always. And I think it's sorting out the kind of wheat from the chaff almost, isn't it, in terms of your sentimental feelings and which are sentimental and which are serving you well in your current life. Because we still need to, even though we feel sentimental about things things should still serve us in our current life. And it's important to feel empowered enough to offload stuff and to give it a new life almost. It's hard. You've got a beautiful £500 watch or something that you got when you were 18 and you would never wear now. Should you then keep hold of that, or should you pass it on to somebody else in the family? Or it's a tough decision to make, isn't it? Those decisions are not easy because sentiment is high. And also then alongside that, the guilt that goes along with, getting rid or repurposing or giving away something that you were given on your 18th birthday by your mum and dad. It's hard, isn't it? I've still got stuff, but I've not got loads of stuff. And so, it's remembering and working out what is important and what isn't.
Yeah. And I think it's also not only that, but also things you inherit from family members or people. Like I've got some stuff that my grandmother had. I have a lovely ring from my grandmother, and I really want to hold on to that. I can't yet decide, because that's a really tricky one for me, I think.
And it's also quite often that kind of jewellery that you inherit from your grandma is very, very beautiful jewellery, but it's not necessarily jewellery that would fit in with your outfits that you're wearing at the moment, because it's quite ornate, isn't it? So it's going to be a very specific occasion that you can wear something very ornate like that. I mean, obviously everyone wears completely different types of jewellery and everyone has completely different styles, but it's important to realise that. And sometimes we cling on to things even though we're never, ever, ever going to wear them. And is that right for that piece of jewellery? So it's like, should that jewellery, I don't know. It's a very interesting psychology, really, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think as well, we also feel for some reason that we have to really hold on to like gold and silver for like a lifetime, because we've always been told it's a precious stone and it's a precious item and a material and it will never lose its value. And I don't know.
We do. And so if something's gold, if we're going through things with clients, well, that's gold, that's silver. And then it becomes a no-no in terms of getting rid of it, when actually you might have costume. If you think about some costume jewellery, now there's costume jewellery out there. Stella and Dot's a great example of that. I think that's actually gone bust now. It's not in the UK anymore. But, Stella and Dot costume jewellery might cost £100 to £150 for a necklace. And so that's not cheap. And that might be more expensive than buying a sort of cheapish gold necklace from, H. Samuel's for 30 quid. Do you know what I mean? And so it's an interesting psychology. Costume jewellery is not cheap anymore. And so, it's the value, but it's that perceived value that we've got, isn't it? As exactly you say, it's a precious metal, and we're tuned into thinking that we have to keep hold of it.
Yeah. A good point. I mean, I think, of course, we definitely want to keep the difference between costume jewelry and almost, can I call it real jewelry? Does that make sense? Because
the time would be for it, but yeah.
But I agree with you. Costume jewelry isn't necessarily always cheap. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, exactly. I bought a beautiful necklace in phase 8, and I think it was 40 or 45 pounds. I don't think that's cheap,
No, exactly. No, it isn't. And I think the thing is about costume jewelry as well. When we have liked something, I think we keep hold of things long after. Costume jewelry fashions change as much as clothes fashions change. But I do think we're more likely to keep hold of a necklace from 15 years ago than we are a skirt somehow. Yeah. Would you agree?
Yeah. I find tons and tons of jewelry in my clients' houses. And some of it is, they were like, oh, wow, that matched an outfit back in the 90s. And it's like, I haven't worn it for like 10 to 15 years. Why? It's still in my house.
Yeah, I know. That's it. So it is interesting, but I think it is all about this because it's small and it doesn't take up space. It's not coming to the top of our list of priorities in terms of decluttering. But today's all about, what we want from today, don't we, Ingrid, is for people to go and tackle their jewellery collection and see whether it serves them in your current life, what you're currently wearing, what you currently want to wear. Does it fit that at the moment?
And I think also what is important to share with our listeners is that if you have decided you're going to do this decluttering and organize it, go and find the stuff that's all over your house, because we find it everywhere. I mean, not only because people leave some at the front door, people have some in the bedroom, people have some in their bag, but also maybe because it's in a safe, but also because we hide it.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think we hide it because we, hide it in principle then from burglars and things. And so it's at the back of drawers, and then it's in your knicker drawer, and it's, as you're saying, little kind of pots in your hallway. It depends on your habits. Some people like to take their earrings off as soon as they come in the house. People don't like that once they've come back from work or whatever. And so that's why it can be just everywhere. So it's definitely all over the place. So the first thing that we need to do is to sort of gather it all up, really, isn't it? And bring it into one place.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think the second step is to, once you've got it all together, start with categorization. So put bracelets together, necklaces together, rings together, earrings together. Or if you have a set that is complete, maybe see if the set is still all together. So put the necklace and the matching bracelet and earrings all together in one set, so it's still complete.
Yeah, you see less and less sets these days, don't you, to be honest? People tend to sort of shake things up a little bit and have different things, don't they? Yeah. But yes, sets still exist, certainly in the kind of more precious jewellery, definitely. And now's the time, I think, once you started to gather like with like and categorise. We love a bit of categorisation, don't we, Ingrid?
Yeah.
We're not going to talk containers yet. That's our next favourite thing. This is the time to really start to see whether or not that tangled up necklace, or that necklace that's lost its clasp, or that earring that's lost its back, whether we actually are going to fix it, find it, untangle it. This is the time to do that, and to be honest with yourself, because again, there's a lot of jewellery, isn't there, that's just tangled up and it's been tangled up for 4 or 5 years. It's not an easy thing. That's where my patience definitely lacks. Untangling jewellery is not I've got the patience of a saint when I'm decluttering, but not untangling jewellery. I'm just like, nope, I'm not doing this. So yeah, but we keep things that are broken. We keep things that are tarnished, no silver. And I know you can clean it up, but do you clean it up? This is the question. And this is the time to ask that.
Yeah. Also, and I think also when you see that it's broken, maybe this is the time, if it is not precious and not expensive, if it is broken, let it go. Then maybe that's the only place for it to go, is the bin. If it's tarnished, then make the decision. Are you going to polish it? Are you going to use a cleaner to sort it out? And if it's tangled, is it precious enough to untangle it and spend that time on it?
Yeah, it's very much going to depend on whether it's, in terms of whether you should just throw it away if it's tangled up. That's going to depend on, what it's made out of, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we're going to come on to that later, because there are options for broken jewellery, which we'll come on to later in terms of offloading them. But we'll talk about that in a bit.
Yeah. Also, I think when you are categorizing, it also might be helpful to even have a separate stack for costume jewelry, separate for really more expensive items. And if you've got a lot of traditional jewelry, maybe it's helpful to put that in a separate category as well. So for example, I worked with a client who had a lot of Indian jewelry, a lot of bangles, a lot of very ornate pieces that she would only wear with her traditional outfits. So we actually kept that all to the side and actually put that with her traditional clothing and not in her general jewelry stacks and things that she would use on a day-to-day basis. So it would be easier for her to find and not have everything all together.
Yeah, no, that's good. Definitely, if you're talking about that kind of traditional jewellery. I've got a question for you. So tell me, why do you think then that people feel that they should separate out a gold necklace from a costume jewellery necklace?
That's a good, I do that. So I have like a jewelry organizer where I've got all my costume jewelry, and I've got a separate jewelry box where I keep all my nice stuff.
And it's interesting because if you think about the psychology, there shouldn't be any difference, because what you're trying to do is wear something and put something on that's going to match it. So whether it's a piece of costume jewelry or whether it's a piece of gold or silver jewelry, it shouldn't make any difference. And so sometimes what I find is that by separating them out and putting your precious jewelry, for want of a better word, separate, means that we don't wear it. Do you know what I mean? And actually, that's the stuff that you should be wearing more. We talk all the time about barriers. And so for me, I definitely really, really expensive stuff you want to keep in its own box, I guess. But I don't have any of that really. So I don't have to worry about that. But if you did, so I can understand that would be boxed up separately, not just going to leave it in with the general stuff. But in general, I don't see why you would think about those things any differently. And so that's just something to think about. But I stumped you there, didn't I, Ingrid, with my question?
Yes, you did. Because I think I've got a couple of nice pieces that I do keep separately.
Mm.
And
but would you wear them in a different time? So do you know what I mean? Are they something that you would wear if you went to a ball or something where you wore a long dress, and that would be a very specific type of jewellery that you would wear with that, maybe, or you might wear a piece of costume jewellery. But in general, if you were just wearing a nice top and a pair of jeans and you wanted a necklace to go with that, would you not then wear your gold necklace and you would wear your costume necklace, is the question.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I think
so. I don't know. So it's just something to think about, really, is should you then separate them out, or actually are you better keeping them together? And it's going to be very dependent on the type of storage that you've got, which is what we're going to talk about now, isn't it?
Yeah. And can I add one more thing as well? Just for the listeners who have a lot of expensive jewelry, you really might want to consider having a safe or having something in a safe place. And I know that is an extra barrier then to get that really special jewelry out. But on the other hand, you really want to be sensible here and have a safe or something that's very lockable and can't be easily taken from your house. So it's in a safe place.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Can I tell you one more story, Leslie? Because it is so nice, such a nice story. One of my clients actually had a whole bag of golden jewelry, very, very special jewelry. And she had hidden it away somewhere in her house. And at one point, she was trying to find a certain piece of jewelry. And she knew it was in that stack of hidden jewelry. And she couldn't find it anywhere. She searched the house, everywhere, high and low, everywhere. Everything was turned upside down to find this bag of jewelry. And so at one point she thought, oh my goodness, our cleaners have left. Have they maybe taken it? I'm distraught, maybe somebody's taken it and now it's all lost. And then I ended up doing a wardrobe declutter with her. And I went through her scarves and kind of things like that and her purses. And lo and behold, there the bag would go. I have never seen anybody jump up and down so high in my life. She was absolutely delighted. So when you hide it, make sure you remember where you hide it.
Definitely. And don't blame the cleaners. The cleaners are always the first to get blamed for anything going missing. It's so hard. We see that all the time if things are missing, don't we? The cleaners must have taken it. It's a terrible thing, really. Anyway, don't get me started on cleaners. Anyway.
So let's talk about storage solutions. Now, I know there is one thing you do not like. So let's get that out of the way first, Leslie.
I hate, as much as I hate Polly Pockets, I hate those jewelry tree things. They can be in the shape of a woman's dress, or they can be in the shape of a hand. A hand. A hand. All those kind of novelty jewelry trees. Honestly, as soon as I see one in a bedroom, I never dictate to my clients what goes in a declutter, but there's strong suggestions when I see one of those that's not going to be helpful to them in organising their jewellery. And the reason is because they're not really the right size. They're normally too short. They're quite often very flimsy, so they fall over all the time. All your jewellery ends up getting mushed up together anyway because it's not all split up, is it? And so it's nice idea, but they look better without any jewelry on them than they do with jewelry on them.
Yeah.
So I just think there's something that they're just gimmicky, really, and just don't work. They're not fit for purpose, are they?
Yeah, I agree with you. I saw one last week at a declutter, or 2 weeks ago, and I thought, honestly, it does not work. It does not work.
But you can understand why people. You can understand though why people buy them, because their jewelry collections are in a pickle and in a mess, and they're like, right, I need something to organise it. And there are not many solutions out there on the market, and that's one of the ones that you see quite often. Probably the most frequent type of jewelry organiser that you see. Well, that's cost effective. There's lots of jewelry solutions out there on the market, but they're quite expensive generally, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely so. So, okay, now we know what you hate. Tell us what you love then.
Hey, it's a very strong word, isn't it?
I know, very, very.
But yeah, but that gives you an idea of how much I feel strongly about jewelry trees. But anyway, so what I would do as an alternative, and not everybody has got this option, but most people have, and you can find it, is that I use little rails that I would screw into the wall, into the back of the door, on the inside of a wardrobe door, tiny little rails, almost like a towel rail, but a small version of that, and that you screw in, and then you can hang your necklaces around them. And even if your necklace hasn't got a clasp, you can loop them through as well. So, and what I've got in my wardrobe is I've got 3 different rails, and I have different size necklaces on each one. And on the bottom one, they're not bangles because you can't put bangles on them, but I do put little bracelets, bracelets that are kind of loose, not rigid. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Those kind of bracelets. So I've got 3 different ones that I use, and it works really well. And the reason why it works well is because you can see everything, because nothing tangles up, because of the right size. And it's a really, really good solution if you can find it somewhere. But it's just finding these little rails and finding somewhere that you can put them.
Mm-hmm. So if you've got your necklaces and your soft bangles, so what do you do with the hard round bangles then? Where have you got those?
I put those in a little wicker basket. So they just go into a little wicker basket, really, because they're rigid, aren't they? So they can't really hang around anything. So they need to be lay flat. So I've just got a separate basket that I use for those. Because we have those, don't we? Sort of hard bangles, like gold bangles and things like that. So that's what I do with that. And then my rings, if I've got, to be fair, I don't really wear many rings other than the ones that I've got on my finger, but I've got a couple of ones that I keep and don't wear, sentimental ones. And I have a little, I use a proper traditional jewellery box for those, with the little things where you stick them in, the little kind of compartments where you can push your rings into. So in there I do rings and I do earrings. So rings and earrings in a jewellery box, bangles in a basket, and necklaces on a rail.
Okay. All right. So I do it a little bit different. I actually have one of those jewelry organizers, and you can find them everywhere. I just happened to find mine in Primark, and it worked really well. And it was only a couple of pounds, so it was a fantastic solution. But I mean, you can buy them also everywhere online and everything. So, but I like them because they look like a hanger. And then they've got like a thing with these pouches in it. And I've got smaller ones for like bangles and bracelets, or even maybe a watch if you want to. And then there's larger ones for kind of more chunkier pieces of necklaces. And they're both sided. So I just have it at the end of my clothes rail, and I can just take it out and just have a look around and see what I have. And then I've got a jewelry box. I think it was my grandmother's actually. And that's where I have my rings and my earrings and a couple of really, really nice bits of jewelry, like I said before. So I do it like that. And for me, that works really, really well.
Yeah. And I think it's finding a solution that works, because the bottom line is we've all got very different types of storage that we can put things into, whether that's a chest of drawers, whether that's, some people have got wardrobes, some people have got a walk-in wardrobe, they've got more options. It just depends really. So it's, you have to be quite inventive really about where you're going to put things for jewelry, because it's important that normal kind of accessibility needs to be there, because you need to be able to see it, need to be able to see it well. And as soon as it's all tangled up, that's when you can't see it as well. So I like the idea of it being in your wardrobe, and at the end, as long as it's not squashed up right at the end that you'd never get it out, that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that works really well for you, does it?
Yeah, definitely. And what I did with a client, she has some really nice jewelry, and so she's got her stuff in a safe, and she actually bought some of that those stackable boxes that you can stack on top of each other, and that worked really, really well for her. So she can just take everything out, and she can just stack and restack them however she wants, and get the stuff out when she goes to like a special occasion and she needs her fancy, lovely posh jewelry.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an option as well. So there's lots of different options out there. So, but I agree with you. Visibility is key.
Yeah, definitely. Because otherwise you just don't put it on, do you? Do you know what I mean? Or you keep going to the same necklace all the time,
Yeah. So what do you do when you go on holiday, Leslie? Have you got like a separate bag or something to put it in?
I do. I have like a little jewelry pouch that was given by a friend a few years ago. Thank you, Helen. I know she listens, so thank you for my lovely jewellery pouch, which I still use. Yeah, it's just a pouch which has got different compartments in it for different things, and so it sort of folds over, so it keeps the necklaces all kind of fold round, and it's got a thing for earrings and it's got a thing for rings on it, and so it just works really well, and I can take 5 or 6 necklaces with me on holiday. So I always take a jewellery pouch with me on holiday.
Nice. I normally go camping, so I don't bring jewelry.
One day.
One day. No, I've got a little box, like a soft. I also have got something separately where if I go, like I went on a girls' weekend and I wanted to bring some jewelry with me, and I actually put a couple of bits and bobs in a soft pouch that was easy to put in my suitcase. So yeah, I understand what you mean. But actually, jewelry pouch might be a really good idea. We've now talked about jewelry pouches for holidays, but what do you do with like things like watch boxes and empty jewelry little boxes? Because I find tons of them around my clients' houses, but they're all empty, or some of them are full, some of them are empty. We don't know what's going on. So what would you suggest to our listeners what we could do with those?
I think that for me, if you want to keep it separately in a box, it should be in the box, so the jewellery should be in the box. So the box shouldn't be just there empty unless it's a watch. I think watches are different, aren't they? And I think watches are definitely something where you do need to keep the box so that the watch then retains its value if you want to sell it on.
Yeah.
So I think certainly if you've got a more expensive watch boxes tend to be a keeper, don't they?
Yeah.
But like little jewellery boxes that you get, because you get jewellery boxes with any kind of precious jewellery these days, don't you, really?
Yeah.
And so those are the ones that if you've got another solution for storing them out of the box is probably better because of that visibility thing that we were talking about, really. So I feel that you can just offload some of those boxes as well.
Yeah, I agree. I've got my watch box I have because I've got a really nice watch. So I've kept the watch box. But if I get a piece of jewelry on holiday and they put it in a little jewelry case, the case can be charity shopped or used for something else. But I don't want to just keep the empty box for just the sake of keeping it. I don't see the point in that. But of course, if you get a beautiful piece of jewelry, a necklace with a matching bracelet or earrings, and it's all in a beautiful set in a velvet box, and it's really a whole thing together, then it might be useful to keep the box, but also then keep the jewelry in it. Don't just keep the box for the sake of keeping it, I think.
Definitely. But actually there's a company that we were going to talk about, wasn't there, called Vintage Cash Cow, where you can send off old jewellery boxes. So more vintage ones, so the ones that are years and years old, because they actually sell things, don't they, I don't quite know what they do, but they take all kinds of things, gold, silver, what else do they take? They take old watches, broken watches, medals, all those kind of things that you have hanging around that you might have inherited from someone that you're not quite sure what to do with. If you do feel that you want to get rid of them and make some money out of them, because that's, because you can make some money out of jewellery, we've not even spoken about that. It's not just about keeping them or giving them away to charity. We can make money out of jewellery. Vintage Cash Cow has worked really well for me with my clients. I've done it personally, and I've used them for my clients as well. So basically what you do is you find a few things hanging around, like of the things that we've just spoken about. You send them off to them. They then come back with and say, right, we'll give you £50, £100, £200, or whatever that might be for those items. They don't individually price each item. So you accept the offer or not. If you want to accept the offer, they pay you the next day. If you don't want to accept the offer, they just send the stuff back to you. And it's a really, really good service. And I've actually been to the warehouse in Leeds to look at how it all works. And it's completely fascinating. It's just a different way, I guess, of doing antique dealing and vintage dealing, really.
Yeah.
But it works well because it tends to be things that we've just got hanging around. There are things in our drawers that we're absolutely going to keep. There's a few things that we're like, I could take it or leave it, but I keep it just because it's gold or just because do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so those are the kind of things that are worth offloading to something like Vintage Cash Cow. And it's a very easy way of doing that. Obviously, there are other ways of doing that as well. But for me, the simpler the solution, the better, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if it's, if you have decided that there's jewelry you do no longer want, there are just different options to do it. But it doesn't necessarily have to either go in the bin or to the charity shop if it's worth some money, or you're not sure, but you think it might be worth some money. Vintage Cash Cow can be a really good way to send it, package it up and send it to them and find out.
Definitely. No, I think it's a really good service. I completely believe in it. And, sometimes when you've gone and you've seen the way that it operates, it takes, you always worried, aren't you, that you're going to get ripped off. And I absolutely don't think that you're getting ripped off. They're there to make money. Of course they are. But I don't think you're getting ripped off. I think you're getting a fair price for things.
Yeah.
And so that's Vintage Cash Cow, which is something that maybe people have not heard of. So that's definitely worth looking into. They've got a great website and everything. So check them out.
Yeah.
And another thing that I wanted to talk about actually as well, which is something that I've done a couple of times actually, which is to repurpose old jewellery. So I've taken jewellery that I'm not wearing anymore. So I got some diamond earrings that I wasn't wearing because I've got a sort of a bob haircut, and so my ears are like covered all the time. So I had these beautiful earrings and I just wasn't wearing them because they were always covered over. And so I decided that I wanted to get these diamond earrings made into a ring instead. So I got one ring made a few years ago, and then I weighed in other gold from old, bits of chains that I'd had in my 20s that I was never going to do anything with. And I weighed all the gold in and got it added to make the gold for the ring. So the ring ended up being not that expensive really, because, the gold that I'd weighed in paid for it. So it was great. It's great. I've done it again since. And so it's definitely something to think about. All that old gold that's knocking around, take it to somewhere that buys gold, and weigh it in and put it towards something else. And you might feel, I just got a ring. So I had my grandma's wedding ring, which I wouldn't necessarily wear just on its own. But I had a little a diamond from something else, tiny, that I've just had inserted into my grandma's wedding ring, and now I do wear that. So it's just bringing. So now I've got the diamond that I wasn't wearing before, and I've got my grandma's wedding ring now, and it, so it just brings it into use, which is a great thing to do, really. So the sentiment's there. So, there's these great jewellery designers out there that'll do whatever you want with them. And so you can definitely repurpose what you've already got into something nice and new.
Yeah. And also, I would like to say to our listeners, really investigate your options. Don't go with the first person you meet. If you've got quite a lot of jewelry that you want to have weighed, maybe go to a couple of places and see, what kind of amount they give you for it. And now don't just go with the first one unless you know it's a reliable source. But maybe ask around locally as well with your friends or family if they know anybody local that they trust and they've used before. Because it can of course be quite a valuable exercise what you're doing.
Most people that I've worked with, and I'll say, take those little bits of gold, the broken necklaces and the clasps and the things that are broken and the things that are so thin that you got when you were 16 or whatever, it all adds up, and then all of a sudden you've got 100-200 pounds, which is great. So
absolutely. Didn't you mention recently to me a charity from a friend of yours as well that does something with jewelry?
Yes, that was costume jewellery, wasn't it? We put it on our Declutter Hub community, didn't we? Because I just loved the idea of it. Girls Take Action in Gambia. So it's there are details on we'll put the details in the show notes. But basically what they're looking for is they're looking for costume jewellery. And then I think somebody in the UK is collecting all the costume jewellery, sending it off to the Gambia, and then they repurpose it or sell it or do something with it over there. So it's all obviously about educating girls in Gambia. So that's a nice charity by the sounds of things. I'm sure there are loads and loads of others out there, but that's the one that certainly caught my attention a few weeks ago. So check that out, and we will put details of that in the show notes.
Yeah, we will. We will put all kinds of links in the show notes, also from Vintage Cash Cow, from the charity, because we would like to give you some options. So we'll find some links in the show notes.
If you don't want to weigh your gold in and you've got one rogue earring in gold without a back on it or something, the charity shops have got outlets for all of that kind of stuff. So they've got dealers that they work with that will weigh gold in for them. So if you want to go down the charity route, please don't discount and think, oh, well, they won't be able to sell that. Charities are so much not about what they can sell. They have people that they work with to offload the stuff that they can't sell, specifically valuable stuff and things like that. So don't be shy to put that in the charity bag.
Yeah. Point well made. Leslie, is there anything else we need to talk about in this podcast, or have we covered just about everything that we wrote down, I think? Is there anything else we're missing? Or is that it
Well,
for
I
this?
know what I'm going to do this weekend. I'm going to do my jewellery because it's long overdue. You do need to look at it because you do cling on to things, don't you, long beyond their fashionable time. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I'm going to look at my jewellery. And mine's quite nicely organised, so it shouldn't take that long, to be honest. I should be able to whiz through it quite easily.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to do some jewellery decluttering this weekend. That's
Yeah,
what I'm going to do.
I did my jewelry reorganizer not so long ago, and I actually had quite a lot of kind of costumey kind of jewelry, not very expensive. And I thought, I'm just not wearing it anymore. I might as well let somebody else enjoy it. So I charity shopped it all. And but maybe indeed you're right. Maybe I should do my my jewelry organizer, my box where I've got kind of other jewelry that's a bit more precious and things. Maybe I should have a good look at that and have a look and
Yeah, and
see.
start to bring these gold things or the stuff from your grandma or whatever. Start to bring them into general use, rather than just leave them sitting in a box. It's just such a shame, isn't it? Really.
Absolutely. Well, listeners, that's it for this episode. We hope you've all enjoyed listening and are inspired to take action. And if you are going to declutter and organize your jewelry maybe this upcoming weekend, or we've given you a little job to do as per usual, a little task. And we appreciate you listening to our podcast today. And if you'd like to get more tips and advice, please follow us on social media. We are on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook as @declutterhub, and have a lively, supportive Facebook group where we chat all things clutter. You can search for the Declutter Hub community. We'd love to see you there. If you don't want to miss the next weekly episode, subscribe to the Declutter Hub podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher, and it will pop into your notifications each Friday. See you next time.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Declutter Hub podcast. Check out declutterhub.com for more inspiration, and don't forget to tune in next week.